Recording in progress.
So we noticed that there's a connection between the parashas of Mishpatim and Ki Tisa that we recently noticed. We believe that the connection that we are going to talk about below is key to understanding God's redemptive covenant. It's easy to miss the connection when you read the parashas in separate parts and then talk about them from week to week. So we're going to talk about it a little bit here. At the end of Parashah Yitro, God is giving the Ten Commandments. And that's at the end of Exodus 20, and that ends at verse 17. Immediately following that, between basically Exodus 20:22 and Exodus 23:33, God gives Moses additional instructions on how the people should relate to each other and to God. And he has Moses write these things down. Then God has Moses bring the elders forward, and then Moses has some young men offer sacrifices to God. Moses at that point takes half the blood from the sacrifices and splashes it on the altar. Then he reads to the people the Ten Commandments and the other laws that Moses received from God between Exodus 20:22 and 23:33. Then Moses goes on, it says in Exodus 24:3, when Moses went and told the people all the Lord's words and laws, they responded with one voice, everything the Lord has said, we will do. That's amazing, right? They're committing themselves to God. And the people said they would do what God said. And then Moses took the blood, he sprinkled it on the people and said, this is the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you in accordance with all these words. This is Exodus 24:8. The significance of this should not be underestimated. So after the sacrifices, God has Moses splash blood on the altar and then sprinkle blood on the people. This is the first covenant. This is the first covenant in blood and is made with the blood of bulls. This is the blood covenant that Jesus and the apostles are going to refer to when they talk about the new covenant. This will be the first covenant, but let's keep on going. This had to be a highly emotional and spiritual experience. The people had to be super high, right? They've made this deal with God. God has shown himself. And then Moses is told to take the elders up to the mountain some distance. And then God showed himself to Moses, Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel went up and saw the God of Israel. Under his feet was something like a pavement made of lapis lazuli, as bright blue as the sky. But God did not raise his hand against these leaders of the Israelites. They saw God and they ate and drank. So this is a stunning commitment and time that the people and God have together. And the leaders are up there and they see God and he did not raise his hand against them. So what do we see? Immediately following this event, Moses and Joshua are called up to the mountain and they are to receive the 10 commandments written in stone and the other instructions. So at this point, God spoke the commandments and God spoke to Moses other instructions and Moses wrote them all down. But now Moses and Joshua are going to go up the mountain for 40 days and God is going to write the 10 commandments. He's going to cut the stone himself. He's going to write it on both sides and give it to Moses. But after 40 days, God says, get down there. The people have gone astray. And it says, when Moses approached the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, his anger burned, and he threw the tablets out of his hands, breaking them to pieces at the foot of the mountain. So now we're in Exodus 32. Less than 40 days after they had that extremely personal and emotional time with God, committing themselves to obey him and being sprinkled with the blood, they have an orgy to an idol. God is mad. Moses is mad. Moses intercedes for a couple of chapters. And then in chapter 34, Moses goes back up the mountain to receive the second set of the 10 commandments and to see God's presence and hear God tell him his name. This is the time when God passed in front of him and he recited his name to Moses. All of that happens in chapter 34. So at the beginning, of 34, he says, he tells Moses, be ready in the morning, then come up to Mount Sinai, present yourself to me there on the top of the mountain. God now is going to make a covenant with the people. Is this the initiation of the new covenant that we will be ratified later? I don't know. But at the rest of that verse about being ready in the morning, he said, be ready, present yourself to me on the top of the mountain. Then the Lord said, I am making a covenant with you. Before all your people, I will do wonders never before done in any nation of the world. The people you live among will see how awesome is the work that I, the Lord, will do for you. Then the Lord said to Moses, write these words down in accordance with the words I made a covenant with you and with Israel. Moses was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights without eating bread or drinking water. And he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 commandments. Yeah, obviously God wrote those. So is this the initiation of the new covenant? I think it is. However, this time, God does not have Moses sprinkle the people with blood. God knew that he needed to ratify the new covenant in the eternal, perfect blood of his son, Jesus Christ. Jeremiah then tells us later, right, hundreds of years later, from Jeremiah 31, these days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and with the people of Judah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their ancestors when I took them by the hand out of Egypt, the one we just read about, because they broke my covenant. So that's what happened when Moses broke the tablets. He was symbolizing that the people broke the covenant they had with God. Though I was a husband to them, declares the Lord. This is the covenant I will make, this is future tense, with the people of Israel after that time, declares the Lord. I will put in their minds and write it on their hearts. I will be their God and they will be my people. No longer will they teach their neighbor or say to one another, nor the Lord, because they will all know me. From the least of them to the greatest, declares the Lord, for I will forgive their sins and I will remember their sins no more. So Daniel goes on and confirms it as well. And he says that in the middle of the 70th week, 77s are decreed for your people and your holy city to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and the prophecy, and to anoint the holy place. This is what Jesus did in the middle of the 70th week. After 3.5 years starting his ministry, being anointed by God at the river by John the Baptist, Jesus brings an end to sin. He atones for wickedness and he brings in the everlasting righteousness. And so Jesus himself, then when he's with the disciples, we learn that Jesus says, in the same way, after the supper, he took the cup and saying, this is the cup of this cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you. Paul then goes on and talks about that as well in 1 Corinthians when he says, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, this is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me. In the same way, after supper, he took the cup and he said, this is the cup of the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me. He's repeating the words of Jesus. He's telling the people in Corinth, this is what Jesus did. There is a new covenant. Then in Hebrews, the writer describes the ritual from Exodus to make sure that we really understand. So in Hebrews 24, starting at verse 8, for this reason, Christ is the mediator of a new covenant, that those who are called may receive the promised eternal inheritance, now that he has died as a ransom to set them free from the sins committed under the first covenant. Which first covenant? We talked about it, and he's going to make it really clear what the first covenant was. When Moses had proclaimed every command of the law to the people, remember the 10 commandments and the other instructions in those 3 chapters, he took the blood of the calves together with the water, scarlet wool, and branches of hyssop, and sprinkled the scroll and the people. And he said, this is the blood of the covenant which God has commanded you to keep. So he's referring back to 24:8. Paul is telling us, that the writer of Hebrews is telling us, that was the first covenant. Man, it is so easy. It is so easy to read that as you pass it by and not even notice back in that parashah. And I'm just going to remind us again. Moses took the blood. This is Exodus 24:8. He sprinkled it on the people, said, "This is the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you in accordance with these words." The first covenant was ratified with the blood of animals. The second covenant was ratified with the blood of God. That's it. That's the connection. Uh, and so let's wrap this up. Thanks for paying attention.